classic literature. I have really been enjoying reading classic literature lately. It's been some of my favorite reads of the past few years. I'm not one of those snobs who thinks that all classic literature is the best books to read or that everybody should primarily be reading classic literature. I think the stories and the writing is just really speaking to me at this point in my life, and I'm really enjoying diving into different time periods and learning more about society then, about values then, about what kind of stories and things interested people of the past. It honestly just feels like a really fun way to learn. I wanted to make a video on my classic book collection for a while now, but I've debated a lot on what the best way to go about it, if I should split it up into multiple videos. And then it kind of begs the question of what actually is classic literature? What are the boundaries to this genre? Most of what I read online is that classic literature is defined as books that stand the test of time, that deal with universal themes on humanity, which feels really vague to me. By that definition, a book written in the 1600s, if it doesn't deal with universal themes of humanity, is it not a classic? Like, I feel like at a certain point, books from the past are just deemed classics. And isn't every book kind of about the universal themes of humanity? And then it also begs the question of what time period is the cutoff for classics? When is it a classic versus a modern classic versus just a contemporary book? I feel like everybody has a different kind of threshold for that, and sometimes it like doesn't make sense. There's certain authors who wrote at the same period in time, and some are modern classic writers and some are classic writers. I was debating all of this when I was considering how to organize this video. I often think of my collection in terms of editions. It's how I organize them on my shelf. And I've decided I'm just going to share every book in my collection so far and discuss them all with you. I am gonna break up this video by editions. So I'm starting with the Penguin Black Spine. These are such a staple in the Classics edition. I love the covers of these. This edition is usually a pretty safe bet when picking up a classic book. They typically have pretty well done notes to give you context to the story as well as references to other texts. They usually have introductions as well, though I tend not to read those because usually the introductions are spoilery because they're providing like an analysis of the text and of the author, and I always forget to go back and read the introduction. Anywho, the first book I'll talk about is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. This is such a beautiful novel. Thomas Hardy has gorgeous atmospheric writing. He describes the setting so perfectly. This one is about Tess, who's a young girl. She is from a poor family, and one day her father discovers that their family is of distant familial relations to another family who is much wealthier in their neighborhood, and he encourages Tess to go and meet them. In doing so, he brings about catastrophic consequences for Tess. This book was so powerful, kind of a scathing look at the morals of the Victorian era. I was in shock reading it. The next one is an incredibly popular book, which is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is actually my edition from high school, so it's very battered and it has all of my like writings and notes from classes. This is about a man named Lockwood who gets trapped in the estate called Wuthering Heights during a snowstorm. While there, he is recounted the story of its owner Heathcliff and a woman named Kathy. Their relationship is very tumultuous and toxic, and Lockwood is told the story of them as children growing up into adults and kind of betrayals and love between them. For me, there's some gorgeous lines in this book that are so powerful and moving, but the rest of the plot is kind of bogged down with less interesting scenes and writing. So I'm a little mid on this book. The next one is another hugely popular book. It's Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I love this book so much. This was one of the first classics that I ever read. I just adore the story and Jane Eyre as a character. She is a poor orphan who goes to work as a governess for a Mr. Rochester. He's kind of a surly, reclusive, unpleasant man. While working there, Jane and him fall in love. This is a very gothic novel. There's a lot of suspense and mystery. There's a lot of atmosphere to build this tension. It's just so good. The way the story unfolds is perfection to me. Next, I have two Jane Austens in this edition. I have Northanger Abbey and Pride and Prejudice. So I'll start with Northanger Abbey. This is the Jane Austen that I read most recently. I only read it for the first time last year. You follow a young girl named Catherine who is obsessed with Gothic novels, and when she finds herself staying at Northanger Abbey estate, she ends up dreaming that she is in a Gothic novel and starts unraveling. It's not my favorite of Jane Austen's books, but it was still very well written. And then the other one is Pride and Prejudice. This is like another one of the first classics I ever read that got me into classic literature, like so many people. I feel funny describing the plot of Pride and Prejudice, but it's about Elizabeth, who is from a more upper middle class background, and Darcy, who is extremely wealthy. On meeting, they have a poor first impression of each other, but over time they learn to overcome their prejudices. It's just like the most perfect love story. Next is Edith Wharton. I won't talk about these too much because I talk about Edith Wharton a little bit too much on this channel. The first one is The House of Mirth. This was my first one that I read of hers. You follow Lily Bart, who is trying to navigate upper crust New York City society after losing her fortune. She dreams of wealth and freedom and is trying to stay within that society. And then the other Edith Wharton I have is Ethan Frome. This is a little novella. It takes place in New England following Ethan Frome. He's a poor farmer who lives with his annoying wife. One day his wife's cousin comes to stay and help tend to the house, and while she's visiting, he becomes obsessed with her. Would highly recommend Edith Wharton. Her writing is just incredible. The next book I have is this absolutely massive book. It's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I haven't read this one, but I really want to. I'm a little bit intimidated to pick up such a big book. It's over 1,000 pages, but I've heard that this book is like so easy to read that you can fly through it because it's so engaging and incredible. So it has me very tempted to pick it up soon. This is about Edmond Dante. He is wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he doesn't commit, and when he eventually escapes this prison, he is hell-bent on revenge. I feel like it's a very adventurous book, a very dramatic and intense book, and I'm just so excited to read this one. The next one is Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This is very, very popular online. A lot of people have read this book recently and only had good things to say about it. It's a Turkish novel, and you follow a young man who falls in love with an artist, and it's kind of a doomed romance. I've heard it's quite a sad love story, but I'm very intrigued and just waiting for the right mood to pick this one up. This is a recent purchase of mine, but it is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. This one has been like calling to me for some reason recently. I'm not really sure why I want to read this so badly right now. I don't think many people are like reading it, so I don't think I've seen it a lot online, but it just interests me so much. It's about a woman who is bored in her marriage and is looking for more exciting things in life, and she begins an affair. I think a lot of classics honestly follow a very similar plot structure. And then I only have one of the Penguin Little Black classics. These are like a cute little short stories or novellas by authors typically published in the traditional Black Spine, so you can get like a little bit of a taste for their writing. This is White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky, so also hugely popular online, but I still haven't read it yet. It's about a young man dealing with unrequited love. Next, I'll talk about the Penguin modern classics. These are the ones with the blue spine. They typically are stories published in the 20th century, so throughout the 1900s. They're all different genres and they're very global. I think they have a lot of like international books that are translated into English. I love these editions. I have enjoyed every single book that I've read in this edition, and I'm so excited to pick up more. There's so many that I want to get. But anyways, first is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is a very fundamental horror book. It isn't horror in the like modern sense of it. It's kind of eerie and creepy, and it's very, very different from the TV show. But you follow a group of people who are staying at Hill House in order to investigate the supernatural things occurring in the house. So it's kind of a ghost story. It's very interesting, but if you're looking for like a classic ghost story, this one might not hit it for you. It's very subtle. Next is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. This is the only James Baldwin I have read so far, but I really, really enjoyed it. It takes place in Harlem, and you follow a teenage girl who falls pregnant, and her boyfriend ends up in jail for a crime he didn't commit. And so you see this story through her eyes and dealing with the pregnancy, trying to morally and emotionally support her boyfriend in jail, and trying to deal with her family and his as they're working to overcome all of the adversity. You also see her reflecting back on their relationship and how they first met. So there's a sweet love story wrapped up in this very short book. It's very soft and there's not a lot of plot to it, but it's beautiful. This is a recent read for me. It's Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's a Colombian novel. You follow this man who is very romantic, and he kind of idealizes a lot of his life. As a young man, he falls in love with a woman who ultimately rejects him and goes on to marry a prominent doctor. 50 years later, this doctor dies, and our main character has the chance to renew his love for this woman. The book starts with them in their 50s, and you see the doctor pass away, and then you're thrown back in time to when the young couple first met, and you follow them through the decades. So it's a huge book. There's so much going on here, and Marquez writes in a very detailed way. It's not overly verbose though. I don't feel like as I was reading it I was getting tired of it. It was just immersing me deeper in the setting and the story. I think my main issue was the main character was just kind of annoying to me. I think he was supposed to be kind of annoying, but he was still annoying. Next is Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. This is a Brazilian novel. It's very hard to pin down what this book is really about. Essentially, you follow a woman named Joanna. As a child, she's restless and kind of wild. You see her over the course of her life and dealing with love and relationships. Lispector's writing is very abstract, and as you're reading it, there's so many gorgeous, gorgeous lines that feel really relatable, even if logically they don't necessarily make sense. It's more of an emotion that washes over you and kind of hits you deeply. Good Morning Midnight by Jean Rhys is about a young woman who is from England, but she is visiting Paris, and she's unraveling from a traumatic event that just occurred in her life, but she's trying to forget about that and just have a good time. This is a tremendously sad and heartbreaking book as you're watching this poor girl struggle with everything in her life, but it's beautifully written. It has this kind of stream of consciousness style where you're really in her thoughts throughout the book and how she is thinking through her feelings. Next is Bonjour Tristesse by Francois Sagan. This edition also has A Certain Smile, which I have read. However, I did not like A Certain Smile. I thought it was kind of boring, and especially compared to Bonjour Tristesse, it just was not comparable. But Bonjour Tristesse, it's about a teenage girl who is excited to spend the summer on the Mediterranean with her father, enjoying a carefree lifestyle, when her father suddenly announces he's going to remarry, and this new woman brings a set of rules and morals to her life. Such a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I know everybody says to read this in the summer. I'm just another one to tell you that you should read this. You should read it in the summer. It's just beautiful. Then I have Orlando by Virginia Woolf. This is the first Virginia Woolf that I've read that I've really enjoyed. It's a fictional biography about a person named Orlando. At the start of the book, they're a man living in the upper class society in the 1500s, and by the end of the book, they've transformed into a woman who is living as a writer in the 1920s. So it spans centuries and it's very genre bending. And I think how whimsical and fun this book is what made me love it. Woolf's writing is gorgeous. This book is what made me fall in love with her writing and see how stunning it is. Could not recommend this book enough. Then I have the Copenhagen trilogy by Tove Ditlevsen. This is 3 short stories, 3 novellas in one book. They're each a memoir about a different time period in Ditlevsen's life. Childhood focuses on her as a young girl living in Copenhagen as a part of a working class family. Youth is about her growing up and dreaming of becoming a writer, and dependency is about her struggle with addiction. I think this book was written so beautifully. Ditlevsen's writing is incredible, and the way that she captures girlhood, I think, is so relatable and so insightful. The way she was able to articulate those feelings of being a young girl. Then I have Behind the Painting by Simburafa. I haven't read this one yet. It's a Thai novel. You follow a young college student who has been tasked with hosting a distinguished man and his new young wife. While hosting, the college student falls in love with the wife and they have a forbidden love. I've heard that it also focuses on the role of women in society and kind of the restrictions placed on them and their independence. I'm very excited to read this one. Then I have The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. This one really intimidates me. It's kind of a genre-bending, very abstract book. It's a collection of different writings that Pessoa wrote throughout his life. It's diaries, it's stories, it's random things kind of combined together into one unique mosaic-like book. It was published posthumously, and I've heard it's also quite sad. Pessoa was struggling with depression, and so it really digs in deep into those feelings. The next 3 I have are nonfiction. They're all specifically a part of my goal to read more feminist literature. I've wanted to read some of the historic texts, some of the more fundamental books to get a better background on feminism. First, I have Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. I read this one and I loved it so much. It's a set of writings that Lorde did over a decade or 2, from essays she wrote to letters to interviews she had and speeches she gave. Fundamentally, it's about the intersection of issues and how important it is for other marginalized groups to uplift one another in order to dismantle racist, patriarchal structures of society. Truly just such a great book. And then I have Woman, Race, and Class by Angela Davis. I'm currently reading this one. This one feels a little bit more essay-like. A lot of Lord's writings felt very personal, at least so far. This one is exploring kind of historical and current injustices in the world and trying to analyze women and Black women's role in society. So far, it's really, really good. I feel like I'm learning so much. And then the last one is Right Wing Woman by Angela Dorkin. I have not read this one. It's basically exploring why some women support right-wing conservative movements despite it directly limiting their rights and freedoms. Very interested to get to this one. And then I also only have one of the Little Penguin modern classics. I have Daydream and Drunkenness of a Young Lady by Clarice Lispector. These are 3 short stories about women. I don't know anything other than that. Let's talk about the cloth-bound classics. These are similar to the Penguin books. They all are hardcover with this like cloth-like binding. I don't love these, so I only have a couple and I'm not intending on purchasing any more. I mean, they look pretty enough, but they're very difficult to read and they get really dusty and it's hard to clean them. The first one is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I have read this, though it's been like 3 years. Famously, it's about Anna Karenina, who is married to a very wealthy man in Russian society. She's kind of bored in her marriage and she begins an affair. But it's honestly so much more than that. You spend a lot of time with a character named Levin, who is very autobiographical of Tolstoy, and he's dealing with his farm, building the farm up, and trying to understand peasants' lifestyle and the struggles that face them, as well as his own love story. It was a really good book and I really enjoyed reading it. I think I would probably enjoy it more now that I have more classics behind me. I think it's easier to read classics the more you read them. Then I have 2 Jane Austens in this style as well. I have Persuasion, which is one of Jane Austen's most mature novels, people say. I love this one. It's maybe my favorite Austen, which is a bold statement. You follow Anne, who is a quiet woman. Years before this story, she fell in love with a man from a poorer background, and due to pressures from society and from her family, she rejects him. Then years later, he comes back into their lives as a successful Navy man, and they have a chance to rekindle their love. This is such a romantic book. I think about the ending so frequently. And then I have Mansfield's Park. I read this one in college, but I remember basically nothing about it, so I'm due for a reread. All I remember really is that you follow Fanny Price. She's also a bit of a quieter Austen heroine, and I believe she goes to her cousin's house to stay there. Of course, falls in love. This one isn't a Penguin cloth-bound classic. I think it's Union Square, but I keep it with my cloth-bound classics because it's also like got the same binding. But it's A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I haven't read this one yet. I've read David Copperfield's by him and I did not enjoy that. I thought it was way too much. It was boring. But my mom gave me this book. She said that she loved it and thought that I would too. From what I know about it, it's a love triangle that occurs during the French Revolution and it's very dramatic. Next is the Penguin English Library. These editions look best like all next to each other because that orange edging to the spine. But these are very simple editions. They don't have any notes, so they don't have really that context, which is super helpful sometimes when you're reading classics. So I don't have too many of them. First is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. This is a very fundamental feminist book. You follow a woman who lives in Louisiana. She is bored by her husband and doesn't really understand why society has all these rules of socializing and engagement, and she begins a love affair and awakens herself to life's possibilities and what she wants. I really enjoyed this book, would really recommend. And then I have My Love, My Life, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This book is so good. It's literally amazing. It's about a scientist, Victor Frankenstein. While studying university, he creates a monster and gives it life. Immediately after, he recognizes the horror in his decision and abandons his creation. And you see the monster alone and yearning for any kind of connection and love in life. This book is so dramatic. Everything is super intense. Every emotion that everyone feels is so intense, and it was just so good. It was written so incredibly. I cannot wait to reread this. I'm 100% rereading it this fall. And then I have A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I haven't read this one yet. It's about a young woman who is from England. She travels with her aunt to Italy, and there she falls in love with a poor man who's traveling with his father, and it kind of raises questions in her life of what does she want to do with her life, where does she want it to lead, kind of questioning the structure and rules that have been driving her life thus far. Next, I have the NYRB editions. Specifically, they all have like a solid color line. They have the NYRB on the bottom. And then honestly, they have such gorgeous covers. I kind of debated whether or not to include NYRB editions here. I mean, they're technically called NYRB classics, this set of books. So they are classics, though some of them were published more recently. NYRB tends to publish books where they didn't have a strong reception when they were first published, but they think they're worthy of a second republishing. It includes a lot of international books. There's a lot of ones that weren't translated into English previously, or maybe had a poor translation, so they're republishing. I really love a lot of the NYRB books, but I haven't read too many, so I'm still kind of growing my collection. The first one is Abigail by Magda Szabo. This is a Hungarian novel. You follow a young girl named Gina. She's living in Budapest with her father during World War II, and suddenly her father says she has to go away to boarding school. While there, Gina really struggles with the strict religious nature of the school and doesn't get along with her teachers or her peers, until one day she learns about a statue in the garden called Abigail, who will help any student in their time of need if you write to her. Definitely a coming of age novel, and I thought it was a really interesting perspective of World War II through the eyes of a child. Then I have Notes of a Crocodile by Cui Mao Zhen. This is a set of fictional diaries following a college student who is lesbian, but she really struggles with her queer feelings and feels very unwelcome in society and out of place. There's a lot of feelings of shame and a lot of stigma. And then I have My Death by Lisa Tuttle. I haven't read this one, though I'm very excited to. I heard it's a very weird and wacky book. You follow a novelist who has lost her husband. I don't know anything about this book other than that, I think, but I've heard it's so good and so weird. Then I have The Post Office Girl by Stefan Zweig. This is an Austrian book. You follow a girl who works in a post office, and one day her aunt takes her away on a trip to Switzerland where she kind of becomes enamored with a wealthy lifestyle. Yeah, that's all that I really know about it. Then I have The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. I started reading this and it's very atmospheric. It's obviously about summer. You follow a young girl and her grandmother as they're on an island off the coast of Finland. They have discussions about life and family and love, and I think it's just a very quiet novel. And then lastly, I have The Vet's Daughter by Barbara Comins. I'm so excited to read this book. I really want to read it soon. It's about a young girl whose father is a vet. After her mother dies, the father remarries, and the new wife is creepy and wants to kind of mold the daughter after herself almost. I've heard it's very strange. I've heard it's kind of gothic. The rest are books that I have like one copy in different editions, so it's all kind of a jumble of books. I have only one of the Oxford World editions. I do want to get more. Their notes are fairly thorough and helpful for understanding the book. This one is Summer by Edith Wharton. I just finished this one actually. It's about a young girl named Charity. She lives in a poor New England town, and one day a wealthy young man comes to visit and they fall in love. But this book is also very sad and serious, and it has a lot of commentary on desire versus duty and the injustices women face. Then I have The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is in the Penguin Classics Deluxe edition. I mean, it's gorgeous. I love this cover. I don't know too much about this book. It's a Russian classic. All I can really remember about the plot is that Satan takes the form of a cat and comes to Moscow. I've heard it's very fantastical, very wacky and weird. I'm also honestly really excited to read this one. I would love to pick this up soon. Then I have a few vintage classics. This one is Stoner by John Williams. I'm obsessed with this book. I love, love, love this book. It's such a soft and subtle novel about a man named Stoner. He was born at the turn of the 20th century to poor farmers in Missouri. At 18, he's sent to university to study agriculture, but while there, he falls in love with literature and spends the rest of his life studying and teaching literature. Very soft and subtle book, gorgeously atmospheric. I loved the writing, and it's just such a perfect novel. You should 100% read this book. Then I have Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. This is a children's classic. I'm very excited to read it. I haven't read this one yet. You follow Anne, who is a orphan, and one day she is mistakenly sent to Green Gables, which is a farm run by an older brother and sister, Marilla and Matthew. And there she builds a home for herself in Green Gables, and I love the TV show Anne with an E, and Anne is just like one of my favorite characters of all time, so I feel like I'm just gonna adore this book so much. Then I have Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I have read about half of this book and then I put it down because I was really struggling with it. You follow a man who commits a murder. After committing this murder, he has an unraveling of guilt. There was a lot of interesting moments in this book, questioning morality. It felt very separated from large parts of less interesting plots, so it was kind of hard to find the amazing moments of insight. I will reread this eventually. Everybody loves this book, and I feel really sad that it just didn't hit me the way it hit everybody else, so I will go back to it someday. Then I have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I'm currently reading this book and really loving it. It's about a woman who meets an older wealthy man in Monte Carlo. They quickly fall in love and get married, and he takes her to his estate Mackerley in the countryside in England, and there our main character is haunted by his first wife who has died. She sees her and everything she feels compared to her, Rebecca, is consumed by this woman. There's a lot of mystery to this book. It feels very gothic and atmospheric. You spend most of the book at the estate, so it's very foggy and misty. They're on the edge of the sea. It's so well written, very immersive. Then I have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. In this one you follow Clarissa Dalloway. You see one day in her life as she's going about preparing for this party that she's going to have. Also follow other characters around London. I did not love this book very much. It just kind of missed the mark for me in a lot of ways, and I just didn't really get it. Then I have two Toni Morrison books. I have technically read both of these in high school, but I don't remember too much about them, so I really want to reread them. First is Beloved. You follow a woman who is an escaped slave living in the North, and she is haunted by the terrors of slavery and by the ghost of her baby. And then I also have Song of Solomon. I don't remember really too much about this book other than you follow Milkman, who is a young man as he's growing up. Yeah, I definitely need to reread this one. And then lastly, I have Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. This one is one where I was like, is this a classic? Do I put this on this list? It was published in the 80s. This one follows a young girl named Annie John as she's growing up. That's all I know about it, but I'm so excited to read it. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Kincaid's writing. That was way too long, but that was everything. Yeah, I'm just so excited about classics lately. I see myself really reading more and more over the next few months, especially as they've just kind of captured my attention. But yeah, I'm very curious what classics you love. Do you have a favorite classic? Is it one that I showed, or is it a different one? I'm really interested in learning about more classics, especially more like underrated classics. I think there's a lot of time periods that I haven't explored yet that I really want to. So do let me know, and also let me know if you have a favorite edition for classics. I'm still kind of exploring different ones, so I don't have like one that I love other than maybe Penguin Modern Classics. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!